Right now, we started the journey on March 21st, and we've been through in 9 days. Right now, we've been through 8 nations, I think. So it's been a spectacular response in every nation. Fortunately, governments also are responding very well. Particularly, many governments have already signed on to the soil policy directive or a handbook that we have published for each individual country, 192 different versions of soil policy workbook, so that each country can use this as a foundation and then frame their own policies based on the latitudinal position of a given nation, its soil types, economic conditions, and of course, the agricultural traditions, because even if you have all the science, you cannot overnight turn the agricultural traditions over. We have to work with that. So these policies have been written and it is being sent to all the 192 countries, even for the Gulf region. We have made this and we have already been in touch with your environment minister, who's very aware and very proactive about these aspects. So we should be coming to Gulf to UAE towards third week of May, I think 16th or 17th of May.
You just gave us a sad equation, but a bit interesting. Soil to sand and sand to soil.
This is something unfortunately not understood, or because I've been last 30 years I've been talking about it, but last 2 years as crafting this Save Soil movement, I've been talking to various agricultural ministries around the world. What I unfortunately see is in most nations still, soil is being treated as an inert substance, not as a living system. Soil is the greatest and the most sophisticated and complex living system, not just on this planet, in the known universe. Nowhere in this universe that we know of is there anywhere such a living system so complex and sophisticated. Today, who we are, even in terms of evolution and in terms of our present existence, we are just a consequence of what is happening beneath our feet in the first 15 to 18 inches of the soil. What microbial activity that is happening is the basis of our existence. So, first and foremost thing is to change the narrative that you are not handling an inert material. By adding a few chemicals, you cannot fix it. Keeping it alive and passing it on as a living substance to future generations is a fundamental responsibility for all of us. Right now, the food that we are consuming doesn't belong to us. We are eating up the food that belongs to the unborn child. In my emotion, it feels like this to me, that if you or me eat up the food of an unborn child, it's a kind of crime against humanity for me. That's how I feel.
You are visiting countries, cities, you are meeting people in this campaign. What is your message and your direct message to the governments and to the countries that you are visiting?
As I said, we are giving out these soil policy documents to every government, to the agriculture ministries, to the head of state, and we are also delivering this through the UN agencies, UNCCD and others. So 4 UN agencies are in partnership with us, so we will deliver it through them also. Above all, we are also writing to 730 political parties in the world, because in democratic nations, it's important that soil and ecology becomes an important part of political manifestos. The response has been extremely positive. In the last 2 years, I have met many heads of state, agriculture ministers, environment ministers, many bureaucrats and UN agencies, and above all, scientists. I have not heard one person speaking in negative, because everybody knows this needs to happen and everybody knows generally what is the direction of the solution. So I have not seen one person, either from industry or government or business or bureaucracy or in the scientific community, uttering one negative word about this. Everybody knows this needs to happen, and I feel as a generation we have to make this happen, because this is a legacy. Soil is not our property. Soil is something that we have received from the past and we have to pass it on that way. You're in a region where there is so much desertification that's happened thousands of years ago, but it is possible to turn this around. It is not that overnight it will happen, it is just that if we set it or enshrine it in our policies, slowly over a period of time, depending upon the terrain and latitudinal positions we are, accordingly it may take certain amount of time, but it is possible to turn this around. Everybody knows, every scientific community in the country or in the world knows that this is possible. It is just that scientists have not been able to convey this to the public because that's not their business. They make research and keep it. I've been talking to some of the top scientists and I said, see, you have invested your lifetime in this soil research, but I'm going to present it in a super simplistic way. Is it all right with you? They said, Sadhguru, simplistic is the way forward because we have reams and reams of research. Even academics and universities don't read it because there is so much substance on these subjects, but it's too big for anybody to read and understand. So it is definitely, this is the way forward, an emotional appeal for people to save soil is definitely the way forward. So most of the top scientists in the world are endorsing this and they are with us. So this is a way forward.
Sadhguru, we spent 2 years during the pandemic. Any lessons from the lockdown, this long time of lockdown, the months, from Mother Earth, from the soil, from the seas, from the oceans, and what we learned? And how can we invest for the next years, maybe from the pandemic era?
It's unfortunate many lives were lost, over 6 million lives were lost, and still it is continuing in some nations, maybe on a milder scale, but still it's going on and we are kind of coming to terms with it. Apart from that, the life that is lost is unfortunate, but otherwise, for those of us who are still here, the important thing we need to understand is it only challenged our lifestyle, not our life. So when we talk about lifestyle, we shouldn't be so attached to our lifestyles. It is this attachment to lifestyles that is causing the damage it's causing. Very easily, we should be able to shift our lifestyle according to the requirements of the day. So in many ways, many naturalists and biologists and others are saying these 2 years of pandemic has been very good for all the other creatures except the human beings. So we need to learn something that this planet is not just for us. Every life has a right to live here. We also have a right to live here. We have a right to live well. But what is living well? This definition is something that all of us have to look at. A human being lives well because one is joyful and peaceful, and above all, we have good nutritious food to eat, clean water to consume, and pure air to breathe. This is most important. If we compromise that, all the wealth that we create, all the comforts and convenience that we create will end up in disease and death as we are seeing. Today, WHO is predicting a mental health pandemic. This is not a joke. The number of people having mental ailments or psychological disturbances is becoming too many. Now they're talking about suicide pandemic. The number of people committing suicide on the planet also is increasing. So we need to address this. In this aspect of both mental health and suicides, it is important to understand soil nutrient quality and the food nutrition that we have when the micronutrients are absent. Physiological and psychological ailments are very normal. Every doctor knows this. It is just that they are not able to get into agriculture and do that. So it's very important this gets enshrined in the policy of every nation that a minimum of 3 to 6% organic content should be there in our soils. I'm not talking about this for desert soils, they are very different. But normally for agricultural soils, 3 to 6% should be there. Only then the microbial life can be active and the soil is alive. If we raise the organic content to 8 to 10%, our water consumption in terms of irrigation would come down to 30% of what it is right now. If you're using 100 liters, it would come down to 30 liters. If we raise the organic content to 12 to 15%, we can reduce the irrigation requirement to 10 to 15%. Instead of 100 liters, if you're using 15 liters, definitely water as a stress that is there on the planet right now, over 2 billion people are water stressed. By 2032, they are saying 3.5 billion people will be water stressed. Living in a world where 3.5 billion people are finding difficulty in finding their daily drinking water is not a pleasant experience for anybody, and this will lead to a lot of strife. So, one important thing is nearly 67 to 68% of world's fresh water that we use is going towards agriculture. That can be easily reduced if you enhance the organic content in the soil. In India, 84% of our water resources are being used for agriculture. Reducing this is a very important way forward for ensuring that future populations don't have water stress.
What's the most important for this production, the organic production, with governments or even with volunteers, that you send them from the World Government Summit, your message?
See, when we talk about governments are there to make policy. So why it is important to enshrine in the policy? Right now, I do not know the exact laws in UAE, but I'm sure there are building laws within the city. Looking at the city, the way it's well organized, obviously there are building laws. That is, if you have 100,000 square feet of urban land, you can't build 100,000 square feet. Maybe they allow you to build 60,000 or 70,000. You have to allow some space for yourself, your neighbor, and that kind of stuff. If you build extra, the authorities will come and demolish it. But if you have 100 acres of land, agricultural land, you can plow every inch of the land. In 10, 15 years, you can make a desert out of it. Nobody will ask you because it is not in the policy as to how to keep the agricultural land. So this is all we are trying to do. You have to have 3 to 6% organic content in agricultural lands. This is a responsibility for ourselves and future generations. And this is important that we understand without enshrining in the policy, even if you do the best practices right now, it could be easily reversed by the next generation or by anybody for that matter. So it's very, very important that it is in the policy. For it to go into the policy, because it's a long-term policy, we need people's support everywhere, particularly in democratically elected governments where their mandate is for 4 to 5 years. In those 5 years, they're generally trying to fulfill the mandate that they have promised their people as to find some kind of results in those 5 years. But if they talk about something which will take 15 years or 20 years to manifest, then they have to seek the permission or the mandate of the people. Right now, our effort through Safe Soil is just this, to bring that mandate that 3 to 4 billion people on the planet, if they say, yes, we are interested in saving soil because this concerns our life and our children's lives, if this is expressed, it will become much easier for the governments to make these policies and affect them. And at what pace each government or each nation goes simply depends on their economic conditions, social conditions, and various others. That we will leave it to individual nations. But by intent, we must enshrine this 3 to 6% organic content must be there in agricultural soils. Otherwise, we will turn rich soils into deserts. For example, right now in Northern Europe, an average in countries like Germany, Czech Republic, and Austria, the average the organic content in the soil is 1.48%. This is very poor for temperate climate because they're using the land only 4 to 5 months in a year. They should have much more organic content, but unfortunately it's not there. In the Southern Europe, it's even worse. It is just a little over 1%, 1.1, 1.2% is the average. In the United States, 30% of the topsoil of the agricultural lands is actually gone. It doesn't even exist, it's simply gone. In India, 62% of our land has become in such a way that organic content is below 0.5%. In Africa, it is 0.3%. And the migrations are happening to a point where now people are talking about by 2032, 1.2 billion people will be migrating. When people migrate, they go through untold suffering. Only when they die, it gets reported, but their sufferings are not, cannot be narrated to anybody, especially women and children. Unplanned migration and the suffering that it will bring to women and children who migrate is cannot be described. Terrible, terrible things happen. So it is very important people stay back in their homelands unless they plan their migration for some purpose, that is okay. This is forced migration because they cannot grow their own food in their land. And the number of suicides in the farming community across the world is also very heavy. All this is related to lack of soil strength, or the cost of input is increasing year by year because there is not enough organic strength in the soils that they're working upon, because the way we have taken to monoculture, industrialized agriculture is such that in approximately 15 to 25 years, the soil is on the verge of desertification. That's what we're facing across the world.
Between the climate crisis, the soil crisis now, and the global warming, what's gonna save our planet and save the soil, save the earth, and where the government should go with the next climate summit?
See, when we talk about climate, we are talking about air, water, soil, all right? But unfortunately, the focus has not been on soil. The focus has been excessively on carbon, fossil fuels. I'm not saying it's an issue. It is also a significant issue which needs to be addressed. But that needs technological infusion, which will not happen overnight. It will take time for it to happen. For example, everybody is talking about solar, wind and stuff like this, but not even 2.5% to 3% of the world's energy requirement is taken care of by alternative systems right now. Well, we must aim for it, we must push for it, but as I said, it will take time, it takes technological evolution and enormous infusion of investments, all this is needed. But nearly 36 to 40% of global warming and climate change in turn is happening because of exposed soils. 71% of Earth's land is right now being farmed. These exposed plowed lands left open emit huge amount of carbon dioxide and also methane, which is 80 times more warming to the atmosphere than what carbon dioxide is. So if you cover this land with at least cover crops when it is not in use, it would make a huge difference. To put this in perspective, I would say, somewhere nearly 1 billion years ago, a process or a phenomena called photosynthesis started. Before photosynthesis happened, the oxygen content in the atmosphere was only a shade over 1%. But today, oxygen content in the atmosphere is 21%. Without this oxygen content, you and me cannot be alive. Most complex life forms on the planet cannot be alive. So this photosynthesis, if you look at it, 1,000 years ago, how much photosynthesis was happening on this planet? And today, how much photosynthesis is happening, if you look at this, there has been an 85% drop, 85%. So slowly the oxygen depletion is happening in the atmosphere, for which we will pay a huge price. It's extremely important. Maximum amount of land has a green leaf. It can be in the form of crops, grasses, bushes, herbs, trees, whichever way. But land should be covered. Land should be covered. You should have crops on it, you have grasses on it, you have bushes on it, something. Green leaf is the magic on this planet, because photosynthesis as a phenomena which uses the perpetual energy of the sun to absorb carbon from the atmosphere and release oxygen into the atmosphere, and also pump carbon sugars into the soil for the microbial life to thrive, and in turn provide nutrients to the plant life, is the most important and complex phenomena that's happening. This is the greatest partnership that is happening in the universe, because it is so complex and so sophisticated how these partnerships are run. According to FAO scientists, we may know 1% of what is happening there.
For the last two calls, please, we'll take two questions from our participant at the World Government Summit.
Hi. So how can I, as an individual, contribute in saving the soil? By the end of the day, I'm the end consumer, and I have stuff to do with my day. I work in corporate. So how can I contribute in saving the soil other than like donating money, if I can? And the second thing is, how can saving the soil contribute to like raising human consciousness, or is it related at all?
Namaskaram, thank you for that question. The important thing is, see, right now the most important thing is to change the narrative on the planet. Because the narrative has not addressed soil at all. Most people I'm talking to have not even heard there's an issue. The scientists are very conscious about this. Many people in the agricultural departments in the world are aware of this, but common people in the society, most people have never even heard about it, that there is a soil issue. So first thing is to change the narrative, because without changing the narrative, affecting policy change will not happen. Policy change, why I'm insisting on policy change is, see, you have a piece of land, I have a piece of… let's say you have a house garden, today you want to go and change it. Well, that's very cute of you to do that, but that is not a solution. The solution has to happen on the agricultural land, and it will only happen if governments create incentives. Let's say, I'm just saying, for example, we can make it like this. In a given country, if it is made like this, right now in Northern Europe, it's 1.48% organic content. If the government set it up like this, if a farmer raises the organic content in his land to 3%, he will get a certain incentive. And if he raises to 6%, he will get a certain other incentive. Like this, you set it up. And also, naturally, the market will arrange itself instead of simply calling products as organic, and what is the rest? Is it inorganic? No, that is also organic. This apple is coming from a land which has 3% organic content, or this apple is coming from a land which has 6% organic content. Those who are willing to pay for their extra micronutrients instead of buying pills in the marketplace, they can buy that fruit or that vegetable which comes from a higher organic content, which has much more nutrients and in a natural way as it is needed for our bodies. Because our bodies cannot absorb nutrition without the microbial activity happening in our own gut. As it happens in the soil for the plants, it happens in our gut, that without the microbial help, we cannot digest. So this is what you need to do right now. This journey that I'm at this stage, I'm riding 30,000 kilometers. We want everybody to talk about soil. You don't have to support me. All you have to do is, you have to talk about soil, make the world talk about soil. This is the first time in the history of humanity that you have the power as an individual to talk to the entire world. Never was this possible before. Today you have technologies and instruments to do that. The phone that you carry, this smartphone is not just for sending silly messages here and there. This smartphone, if we use it smartly, it can change the narrative on the planet. Changing the narrative on the planet is extremely important right now, because this ignorance that people are thinking soil is inert material. In many nations, they refer to soil. In India, we refer to soil as mother soil, and people bow down to the soil. But in many nations, people refer to the soil as dirt. If this is dirt, all of us are dirt bags, isn't it? So, this is the most important thing. So what you can do right now, just assist in changing the narrative. You invest a little… we are creating what is called as Earth Buddies. If you invest 10 to 15 minutes a day and enhance the message in the world by yourself, adding whatever you want to add, there is enough research material. Our own SaveSoil.org has a lot of material, but there is so much more material. You can go to the FAO sites or wherever and get the best possible research and share and enhance the message, not just with your friends in the world. You have the power to do it, there are technologies in your hands to do it. Please make the world speak about soil in a concerted way at this time, because we are going into COP15 in Ivory Coast. By the time we go there, if people have spoken in a big way, making or affecting policy change will become very easy. And about what you as a young woman can do is just this for now. Later on, it is the work of the governments. We will come to that later, but right now the most important thing is, as a generation, we must speak. You talked about, does it add to consciousness? See, we have found so many ways to see what are our differences. Well, you are a woman, I am a man, so there is a gender difference. Well, your race is different, your religion is different, your language is different. Like this, we are going on seeing what differences are there with each other and which has led to so much conflict, but we don't seem to grow up, we don't seem to understand. The number of wars we have fought in the last 100 years, 20th century was enough, there were 2 world wars. What is this for? What are we trying to achieve? Petty things. But if you look for common areas, people may not understand what is universal consciousness or cosmic consciousness. But at least this much we must understand, we all are made of soil, this very body is soil. We every day nourish ourselves from the soil, and when we die, we go back to the soil. So soil is a common factor for all of us. This common denominator can be used for all of us to come together irrespective of our race, religion, nationality, caste, creed, gender. We can come together because here there is one common factor, all of us are from it, nobody can deny it. So this can be a great way of raising human consciousness too, and that's what we're looking at. That's why it's called Conscious Planet.
The famous Sadhguru, thank you, live with the World Government Summit from Slovenia, waiting for you in Dubai very soon. Thanks again.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, all of you.